This video is sponsored by 𝗬𝗏𝗡. Be smart, get wise.
Everyone asks, what's the cost of living in Valencia? But almost no one asks the more important question.
How much does it really cost to move to Spain in the first place? Hi guys, I'm Bea.
And I'm Paul.
And this is Everything is 𝗏𝗏.
Before you enjoy your €2 services and sunny beach days, you're going to spend thousands just getting set up.
So in this video, we're going to list down all of the upfront costs, starting from your initial visa application all to around about a month after you've arrived here in Spain.
So stick around if you're thinking of relocating, because this video might save you from a very expensive surprise. Cost of moving to Spain is coming right up after the intro.
Okay, so we're using our laptops for this just so like we don't forget anything. Okay, we listed them all down. So the first one, like how much does it really cost? We're gonna answer this question right away. The big picture is like, you know, moving to Spain isn't just about like the plane tickets and a dream and, you know, you go and that's it. Realistically, most people will spend around 6,000 to 12,000 euros per person before they're fully settled. So, and if you're moving as a couple or a family, obviously like that doubles, triples sometimes, and you know, it can go up pretty fast. So let's break down exactly where that money goes. The first one will be your visa and application costs. So first up is your visa. This is your entry ticket into Spain. You'll need to apply at your Spanish consulate and get your visa so that you can move here for long term, for more than like a, you know, tourist visa, which has either a 30, 60, 90-day deadline. So this one depends on your nationality and not on where you are in the world applying for the Spanish consulate. So what do I mean by this? For most non-EU passport holders, the fee is around 93 euros for a non-lucrative visa. We're talking about the non-lucrative because that's the visa that we both applied for. For Americans, that could be around $153. For UK applicants, it's gonna be about 512 pounds. For Australians, it's 710 Australian dollars. This is per person. So if there's two of you, that's 1,400 Australian dollars. And for Canadians, it's 1,085 Canadian dollars. So this is because of reciprocity, meaning that the fees that they have is reciprocal to what, for example, Canada would when they issue a visa to a Spanish citizen or a Spanish national. So that's why the fees are like that.
And that's just the application fee. Now we add the required documents. So for translations, about $35 per page. For us, I think we translated 5 pages at least, and that's $175. Apostille services, which is about $20 per page. We did 2, so it's about $40. Marriage certificate, if applicable, it's $20. Medical certificate is $75. So already you have a few $100s in, and we're just getting started. And
we're just basing that off of our experience of all of the requirements that we had. The next items on the list are items that are gonna be for services, professional services, or products that are Spain-based, which means that you will already need to pay them in euros. So for these transactions, we opened a 𝗬𝗏𝗡 account and transferred our USD to euros to pay them. And there's something that most people don't think about would be exchange rates. So if you're moving from the US or really anywhere outside the Eurozone, the home currency to euro exchange rate can make a huge difference in how much money you actually have or here in Spain. So especially if you're in a fixed income or transferring a large chunk of your savings to euros. That rate is constantly changing. So sometimes your money goes further and sometimes you lose hundreds just from bad timing. So for example, if you have $100,000 saved in your savings account, If the euro is stronger, then that might mean you only have 80,000 euros to spend here in Spain. Or if the dollar is stronger, then that means you might have 85, 86, 87,000 euros to spend here in Spain. And that's rent money. That's a big difference. So we have friends who have literally set up 𝗬𝗚 alerts on their phones, just so when the dollar gets stronger, they get to transfer larger amounts into their Spanish bank accounts.
𝗬𝗚 also helps you save big on international transfers. So they've built their own payment network, which is cheaper than other banks, and those savings go straight to you. So for high volume transfers, you get a dedicated support specialist to guide you through the process step by step. Okay, so back to the real cost of moving to Spain. Now here's where things can really vary. Some people do the DIY process, others decide to pay for peace of mind. For most of these Spain-based services, we had to open a 𝗬𝗚 account so we could pay the insurance agent via their IBAN. For an immigration specialist, typically it's about 900 to 1,500 per person. Is it worth it? Yes and no. Yes, especially since these professionals are submitting to the consulate every week. And sometimes the interpretation changes without warning, especially for a new visa like the digital nomad. No, if your case is super straightforward.
But that's really up to you guys if you want to use an immigration expert or not. It is, for me, peace of mind when you do, because they are talking to the consulates every week, or they're submitting to the consulates every week. So they're updated in real time of what's going on.
Then comes the relocation agent. So for relocation agents, typically $1,500 plus 21% VAT. But they help you with finding housing, setting up utilities, and navigating Spanish bureaucracy, which is really important. Basically, they make your life easier, but they're not cheap. There's also a gestor, which means they do admin help. They help you with the TIE, which means Tarjeta de Identificación de Extranjero. RO. And then they also give you padron appointments, which is about 250 euros plus 21% VAT.
So these ones, you don't have to hire these services, but for a lot of people that we know, especially because you're so far away, you're living in a different continent, sometimes it makes it easier, especially if you don't speak the language yet, right? So for us, we didn't hire a relocation agent, but it did take us longer to find an apartment, and we talked about that in our previous video. So that took us so long to find an apartment. We did hire someone to help us schedule our TIE, and our padron, because we just couldn't figure it out on our own, because we couldn't navigate the website, because it's hard to navigate the website.
So just like what you said, Spain is famous for paperwork, and a gestor will really help you handle all of it.
Yeah, so if you're at your wit's end, this could be the time to call for some professional help. And with that, obviously, that means that you will shell out more money. There's also the health insurance, the school requirements, and obviously learning Spanish. That should be something that's one of your priorities as well. So Spain requires private health insurance for most visas, and they have to have no co-waiting, no copay, no deductible. With expatriation, it has to have full coverage. So we've shopped around. I think last month I looked around for someone our age, which is early 40s, and it's around 1,000 euros per person per year if you don't have any pre-existing conditions. So you must pay this upfront, and if you don't have this insurance, you will not get your visa approval. So this is actually mandatory. Also for this one, we did use 𝗬𝗚 to pay for the insurance, and we had to pay for a year upfront, right? So it wasn't a monthly payment. We had to pay that for one whole year. And then also, if you have kids ages from 6 to 16, having them enrolled in school in Spain is mandatory. So the consulate may ask you if the kids are already enrolled for the school year. So which normally means that they will have to be enrolled initially in like a private school or maybe a concertado, depending on what you can find. And the tuition fee for that is anywhere from 600 euros for a concertado to around 12,000 for a private, elite or exclusive private school. So it depends on the school, but count those when you have kids from around ages 6 to 16.
And then their Spanish classes. These classes can start at around 100 euros per month. And trust us when we say you will need many months of classes just to get by. So if you're able to, take Spanish 101 classes at your local community college or language school even before you move to Spain.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about actually getting to Spain. So the flights are on an average are about 700 euros one way per person. And then extra luggage is 100 extra per if you're bringing more than the allowed.
Yeah, and for a lot of people who are moving for the first time, and you don't want to pay for an extra service to send over your extra suitcases or extra boxes, and you want to fit them in suitcases. So it's actually more cost effective and it's safer that way because you just take everything with you.
Of course, when you go, you're gonna need a temporary place to stay. Most people don't land and find an apartment immediately when they arrive in Spain. So you'll likely book an Airbnb or something similar. An Airbnb for 1 month would cost about 1,900 euros on an average.
Here in Valencia. And then obviously once you arrive at the airport, you'll want to have a SIM right away. So like for us, we went to get a prepaid SIM card and that cost about 25 euros per person to get like a prepaid SIM just for the month. And then from then we figure out what we want to do. And then also there could be a car rental if you are moving somewhere where you cannot take a train or a bus. So you might need to rent a van, and if you have a lot of luggage. So that easily could be another 200 to 300 euros for you to just move your suitcases with you. And don't forget, you need an international driver's permit when you first arrive and if you're renting a car, so that you can actually drive here in Spain. And that one is about $25 per person, I believe, from AAA. That's where we got ours. And if you plan to stay long term, the Spanish driver's license, if you cannot exchange your original driver's license, like say from the US or Canada, I know you can't do that. Spanish driver's license is around 400 euros to 1,000 euros, and that takes a while to get as well. So if you want to make sure that you have that, you need to work on that in the first few months of you arriving. So it's 400 to 1,000. Why the discrepancy? Because it depends on, you have to go to one auto escuela, so they will have to evaluate you and then they will tell you that you need this many lessons, like, oh, you need 5 or 6 lessons, or no, you need 10 lessons. So that is why there's such a discrepancy. And obviously if you need to have that test in English, then that's gonna cost extra too, because then they don't have a lot of instructors that are speaking English. So that's an additional cost as well.
Next section is a big one. It's renting your first apartment. To secure a rental in Spain, you typically need 1 month deposit and then 1 month rent upfront. So for example, if the rent is 1,200 euros, then you're gonna need to pay 2,400 upfront. And sometimes there's gonna be agency fees, and then there's gonna be additional guarantees.
Yeah, for example, when we applied, we had a dog with us, so they asked for an extra month of deposit because we had a dog.
So total estimated cost, we should put it together. This is per person estimate. So for visa plus the document, it's gonna be about 300 to 1,000 euros. For professional services, it's about 1,000 to 3,000 euros.
Again, that's optional, but kind of like factor that in case you really need help. Make sure that you have that buffer.
And then for health insurance, it could be about 1,000 euros. If you have pre-existing conditions, then it could be higher. For Airbnb, for 1 month of Airbnb rental, it's about 1,900 euros. And then for transport and licenses, it could be about 1,000 to 1,500 euros, which is probably gonna include the plane and stuff.
Yeah, this is per person. Keep in mind, all of these costs are per person.
And then for rental, upfront cost is gonna be 2,400 euros. Which brings us to a total of, did you calculate it?
No, I'm gonna calculate it. Like really calculate
Pause for calculation.
300 plus 1,000 plus 1,000. Okay, I'm back. 6,600 euros to be conservative, and then to around 10,000, 11,000 euros per person. And that's like a realistic, honest number. And that's, for most of them, those are what we had to spend to get ourselves here. So when people ask, what's the cost of living in Valencia? They're skipping the hardest part. Because the challenge isn't living here. First of all, it's getting here and finally getting that much coveted padron and TIE residency card.
So we hope you found this video helpful. If you have anything to add to this list, please drop them in the comments below.
We want to thank 𝗧𝗏 for sponsoring this video. We are 𝗧𝗏 customers ourselves, and we are very happy to be living examples of how we used 𝗧𝗏 during our relocation from California to Spain.
Sign up using the link in the description to get your first transfer fee free up to $600 for when you transfer money for your living expenses abroad.
See you in the next video.
Ciao!
Thank you. Bye.